Happy Friday to you. It is time to recap Wednesday's meeting, the regular council meeting that happened. And I want to start out by, telling you that you can find the links for the agenda in the description of Facebook and YouTube here. But also, there's going to be a link about the airport. And that's what I want to unpack with you today. The Municipal District of St. Stephen is the owner of the Giddens Memorial Airport. Did you know that? We have that airport just kind of adjacent to the Old Bay Road there. And if you've ever golfed at the St. Stephen Golf Club, you know that you will drive balls into the airport area. But this is one of those examples, friends, of this incredible asset that we have on the books because of the vision of people decades ago who decided to build an airport here, and we love that and we're grateful for that. But in that municipal financial formula of cash plus infrastructure equals liabilities plus surplus, I don't want to unpack all that right now, but when we have invested in something, when we spend cash to build infrastructure like an airport, well, guess what? That becomes a liability, and we need to balance that with surplus revenue from either the past, where basically we've built up a surplus and then we can pay to replace it or repair it, or we need to take on debt from a future budget and say we will pay it off then. That is how you find out your net position for anything, your financial position for anything in a municipality. And here we are with this incredible airport worth tons of money, not just financially, but also it has a lot of social worth, a lot of value in terms of pride of the community. And so but I was going to rush on into the report here, but we have to consider that apparently the buildings and the runway and the infrastructure of our airport are actually at or beyond their reasonable lifespan for usability. So, of course, an airport that doesn't have a runway that can accommodate airplanes, you get how useless that is, right? So, as with many things in the municipality, obviously, like I've talked about pipes and pavement, those are absolutely crucial. We need to get around on our roads. We need sewer water and running water. The airport is one of those like really nice to have things. And as mayor, I just want to say it will be my priority to figure this out, crack this nut. Obviously, like many things in our municipality, we do not want an extra burden on our property taxes. It is important. It's incumbent on your council to always be walking that line of keeping the tax rate as low as we can. So if you think, well, the airport needs $1 million in repairs, let's just slap that on the taxpayer, that would be absolutely devastating. We are not a huge community. And so, when you want to add even 250 grand, like it really adds to your annual tax burden. So we want to keep that low, but I want to share with you exactly how the airport is a huge asset and an opportunity in terms of investing. When you invest, when you spend money to make money, well, then you've made a wise investment, right? It's not just something that depreciates in your driveway like a sports car. No offense if you have a sports car, but it's not making you money unless anyway, you know what I'm saying. There are probably ways to use a sports car to make money, but most of us are just buying it because it's really great. We don't want to do that as a municipality. So here's what comes down to at the airport. There are three choices for the airport because we own the airport. If it's falling apart, we need to replace the things. I know this sounds familiar to you. Oh, another thing we own that's falling apart. Okay, so there are three options. The first is to keep it within our ownership, but then start to share it with other municipalities. Again, click the link and you can kind of go through this master plan that has been developed by HM Aero, which is a consultation company that really over 6 months created a comprehensive master plan for the way forward. And the first is we keep it in our municipality, but we ask other municipalities to share some of the specific project costs, maybe a new terminal building, maybe a new runway, maybe a new apron, maybe all these kind of technical terms that you'll find in the report. So that is an option. The second option is to turn it over to the Southwest Service Commission, right? That is the agency that we pay into with our other municipalities, and they handle things like waste disposal. I've done a whole video on the Southwest Service Commission and the shared planning services. Basically, it's a service sharing agency in the regional service commissions all throughout New Brunswick. There are 10 of them, and so we pay into that and share the costs that way. So we could give them the airport, and then of course they can build it out, and then it would be one of those things that's a liability off of our books, and we could breathe a sigh of relief. But of course we would lose the great asset and money-making potential the airport brings. The other option, the third and final option, is an airport authority, which would be essentially a nonprofit, a private nonprofit that would be managed, and then all the municipalities would kind of share into this nonprofit, and it has to function as a profitable business, a nonprofit business. But that would be, again, off of our books, out of our ownership, and could function that way. So those are three options as a result of the master plan that has been delivered. But I want to share with you some of the highlights when we talk about how to make money. First of all, who uses the airport? I found this really interesting. And they were saying the public should know more about this. And again, as mayor, this is the kind of thing that I want to inform you about, things like the airport, because apparently people didn't know. When you think of an airport, we think about airports the way we use airports, tourism, right? I've been in an airport when I visit a place. Well, that is true. And when I found out that an F1 driver, as a huge F1 fan that I am, an F1 driver recently, the Montreal Grand Prix, actually took a plane, landed in St. Stephen, and visited the area. You could have knocked me over with a feather. That's what we think about when we think about tourism. We say we want more of that. At the end of the day, though, we have to decide, is tourism enough to offset the costs of not just running the airport, but then replacing the airport? You need that surplus all the time, right? You can't just be breaking even on an airport. You have to be putting money away to replace everything. So there is the tourism piece, but a larger piece is the public safety piece. And the report goes through how, for border sovereignty, you have the RCMP running large helicopters up and down now as part of their patrol. Well, right now they have to go to St. John to refuel, or even Fredericton. They would love this border airport right here where they could refuel. Right now we don't have the infrastructure for that. Search and rescue teams would love to be able to land their planes and refuel here and use it as a base. So that's incredible as well. Forest firefighting teams would love to be able to, there's fixed wing airplanes that have been traditionally fighting fires, but now we're moving more to helicopters for targeted dumps of fire retardants and things like that. And this is where we can have more helicopter capacity if we had the proper infrastructure, the proper equipment, and really, most importantly, the fuel capacity to refuel a lot of these search and rescue planes, the Black Hawk helicopters for the RCMP and policing and things like that. So it's not just pie in the sky. Nothing we ever do should be like, it would be nice if. I hope that this is very specific of what we can do and who we can help with the St. Stephen Airport. And so that's something to consider. The other really, and I'm going to just say briefly, this does remind me of like Macadam. When you're strategic about this, the way I did a whole video about Macadam, where the mayor and the council there knew St. John was expanding their port and said, oh my gosh, that means more rail traffic. How can Macadam lean into its history of railway infrastructure in order to generate way more money for the town and expand the town of Macadam? And they have leaned fully into that as an opportunity for economic development. Again, when we see all this activity, search and rescue, firefighting, border patrol, sovereignty, and tourism all at the same time, we do see opportunity here, and it's important to lean into that and plan accordingly. So the other major thing that was mentioned with all of these is essentially using the airport as a gas station. That's kind of a base way to say it. But if you have the proper fuel tanks and fuel, the level, the premium that these aircraft need, then you can essentially become a gas station, and there is money to be made so that airplanes do not have to fly an hour and a half away to refuel. An hour and a half on the ground. It doesn't take them that. I understand. An hour and a half for us, all the way to St. John or all the way to Fredericton to refuel. So we do see, again, revenue raising opportunity there because the primary source of an airport like this is the fuel piece, the refueling piece. And so that's something we need to think of. So the plan talks about over the next like 5-ish years, a $1.5 million kind of immediate investment is needed to bring things up to standard. And then beyond that, an expansion plan of about $11 million beyond 5 years, like kind of the 5 to 10 to 15 year range to get the airport to where it can be to service the public safety and public health providers and potentially boost tourism and all that kind of stuff. But we need to replace all the infrastructure that is there now, essentially. So this is one of those like tough decisions, but the benefits of the airport are far beyond St. Stephen. That's a good thing in terms of the desirability of the airport, but it cuts another way where we need to say to our neighboring municipalities, hey, we are bearing the full cost of the airport right now. But of course, if an F1 driver comes here, then of course they're probably going to visit the whole area. And there are people in St. Andrews who want an airport, the mayor was saying. They don't want to have to fly into St. John. They want to be able to come into St. Stephen. So the drive home is 20 minutes away. And so you got to talk to other municipalities and say, realistically, the benefit is to you. And then also when the province is using the airport, when the federal government is using the airport, you need to say to them, can you help us with funding? And so that's where we need to look to ACOA, the Regional Development Corporation. There are pockets of money out there when these agencies are using the airport and will clearly see benefit housing personnel there and aircraft there, then you can say, well, help us with the funding. And of course, St. Stephen would see a boon in terms of the benefits as well, because it's right here in our municipality. So lots to think about over the next few years. I think that's as much as I'm going to go into it. Oh, fun fact, and Councillor Harding mentioned, because she has a CBSA background, this airport is the only 24/7 airport with that correct designation for the Border Services Agency. I think she said east of Montreal or something. So our airport, and then this was corroborated by the gentleman doing the presentation, our airport has a very lucrative and highly sought after designation as a 24/7 airport in terms of service for aircraft, and the Border Patrol Agency really is looking for that. So we're seeing all kinds of benefits, all kinds of pluses, but just like anything in our municipality, it comes down to when you break down the numbers, we're not going to sink money into something that costs us more than it's making. And you always have to be thinking the reason for that is because things need to be replaced. And we're kind of stuck with a bill right now from the past. Municipalities always need to be running surpluses for this exact kind of situation. So we need to start shaking some trees, looking for more sources of funding so that this incredible asset, the St. Stephen Giddens Memorial Airport, can continue to be something that we enjoy and that a lot of people use, and that is that source of economic development for public safety, public health, tourism, and all the good things that are happening in our area. Okay, link for the master plan is going to be in the video here. This is just one more way we build up St. Stephen, but carefully and smartly and fiscally responsibly. BuildUpStStephen.ca, that is my website, and you can check that out for commitments, priorities. Tomorrow is Meet the Candidates. If you're watching this today on Friday at the Garcelon Civic Center, 3 p.m., I'll be there, but I'll make another video tomorrow morning before that. Looking forward to talking to you then. Have a great rest of your day. Take care of yourself and your neighbor today. Let's build up St. Stephen together, and that possibly includes our airport. Cheers.